Anything else? Hello, here we are. I'm so happy to be back. This is the Canadian Bro Show, all things Canadian with Pauly and Johnny. My name is Paul Bale. I am the founder, director, and host of the Canadian Bro Show. And today we're very excited to be back in the game. We have a new studio, we have new equipment, we have new brains. And the brains behind the brains is my incredibly talented and dear old friend, Mr. John Leister. Welcome.
Thank you for that nice introduction, Pauly. How are you? Good to see you
I'm
again.
I'm excellent. Nice to see you. Johnny is our co-host specifically for this iteration of the Canadian Bro Show. For those that haven't seen the Canadian Bro Show, Johnny and I have been at this for the better part of this will be episode 13. And by the way, episode 13, we're going to be doing our Siskel and Ebert
Hmm,
Canadian version, Pauly and Johnny, and
there
we're
we
going to
go.
be doing pop culture with the today's episode. We're going to be doing episode 13. Good luck, number 13, and of course being episode 13, it's our favorite war films.
There we
And
go.
I'm
I'm excited.
excited. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Johnny, what's been going on in your world? You're in Vancouver. I'm in
Yeah.
Kelowna. How you doing?
Fine. Glad you asked. Nothing too earth shattering. I have some mold issues in my bathroom. I'm sure that will be very interesting for our viewers. Anyone out there, if you have issues with mold, vinegar works like a charm. So I'm
I'm so glad you said you had mold issues,
yeah,
and but you didn't specifically say exactly what those mold issues were and where. So
just too much moisture. I mean, I open my windows when I shower, and the management was in my suite the other day, and I was a little concerned. So I went online, did a little research, and apparently vinegar works really well. And I tried it out, and it absolutely worked like a charm. So I
yeah,
wouldn't consider my bathroom to be worthy of a five-diamond hotel, but it's significantly better than it was before, and I'm not so worried about being evicted. So that's
you know,
pretty much the exciting aspect of my life. How about
well,
yourself, dear
well.
boy?
First of all, let me comment on your bathroom in your place. I've actually never been in person. I do know the building quite well. I
Hmm.
did date a girl very briefly about 35 years ago
Wow.
that
Small world.
lived in that building, and we went to the outdoor pool, and she looked great in a bikini, and so did I at that point. But our
Family friendly.
relationship didn't last very long. But I know what the layouts are like in there, and I remember when you did videos of you cooking and working out, and you're half
Yeah.
naked, and YouTube cut you, and blah blah
We
blah.
did. I
Um,
violated their nudity clause of all things, but I'm back on YouTube now. They
well,
forgave
I
me.
understand that, but
The sale was beginning.
I thought it was nudity and drunkenness because
I think it
you
was
had
my man boobs. I think their algorithm
yeah. I
misformed
mean,
my
it's
saggy
YouTube does
pecs.
not really they're not into nipplage in YouTube.
They're not. They're very
No,
fussy. But you know what? It's a
although
good thing. We have to abide by them.
although the latest thing in YouTube is women that wear transparent clothes that
Uh,
show a little nipplage, and
it
that's
seems
apparently
somewhat
allowed.
unfair.
Can you imagine? I wouldn't want to show my moobs. Trust me.
Yeah, okay.
If they
Well,
jiggle, it's fat. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
some people have
Um,
no shame.
oh
So,
my
how's
God.
your life been over the last few days since
Well,
last
it's been
spoke?
very challenging. I'm up in Kelowna. For those that don't know, I'm also a real estate agent, landlord, and investor. And my tenants gave notice, 1 month notice. Tenants
Ouch.
are allowed to give 1 month notice or less, but landlords have to give 3 months notice and 1 month free. So you could just see how that is so fair and
It's a
even.
very unbalanced world sometimes.
Well, it's in British Columbia, it's extremely unbalanced. We're
Yeah.
the only place in the world that has many of the rules and policies invented by the ineptitude of our local provincial government, and it is destroying the fabric of Canadian society. But that is not this episode
No.
because we don't really want to
Let's
talk
keep
about
it positive.
politics right now. We will talk about our favorite war films. And
Hmm.
Johnny, let me ask you quick: what is it about war films that sort of captures your imagination? Do you
Well, it's
think that
funny
you were in a war in a past life and maybe got whacked and you
that
have bitter
that that's
resentment?
that's absolutely the reason. No, I would say that I find war movies to be very creative on your part, I must say. I
Thank you.
find war movies, I mean, I like all movies, I like all genres, but what
Yeah,
I
me
like
too.
specifically about war movies, I like the ones that are uplifting. You know,
Mm.
I like the brotherhood, the camaraderie, the
Mhm.
bravery, the sacrifice, you know, the freedoms that you and I and our listeners enjoy in the free,
Oh.
loving nations around the world.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, they can be taken away from us in a heartbeat. And the only reason they're not taken away from us is
Mm.
because there are men and women who are willing to run towards what most of us run away from.
Mm,
So when I watch a really good war movie, it's like watching a really good, uplifting sci-fi movie or adventure film. I just feel a sense of elation. I feel better about myself. I feel better about other people, and
mhm,
that's why I'm not really a huge fan of the horror genre too much. I mean, there are some of my
mm,
favorite movies are horror movies, but I just find that they kind of celebrate evil, and I like a movie. And this is what war movies, good movies do. They celebrate what's beautiful about humanity. Again, the brotherhood, the esprit de corps. You watch my back, I'll watch your back, that kind of thing. And
yeah.
as we talked about in the previous podcast, I spent a lot of time hanging around recruiting centers in my
Mm,
early 20s. I seriously considered enlisting, and
mhm,
that was the draw for me.
mm,
Again, just that feeling of brotherhood and being as in a diverse group as imaginable, but all on the same page in terms of life and death. And
right.
so that's what I like about war movies. How about you?
I mean, what a great answer, Johnny. I almost enlisted as well because our family been in the First World War, Second World War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and
Well,
I thought, geez, out of even though I thought I was the bomb out of 18, I knew everything, of course. I
most of us.
really felt I missed the boat. I should have gone and joined the forces.
Mm.
I'm not really sure which one. I would have probably joined the Navy.
Oh,
Um, Air Force,
because of
I
off.
wouldn't be able to I wouldn't be able to do the math with the Air Force.
Oh
Infantry,
yeah.
you get whacked right away.
Mm.
Navy, you're out in the water. I can swim a little bit, but the Navy SEALs are so tough. Anyways, I just wanted to get a free degree and 4 years of growth and to early manhood, and
Yeah.
then go into life. And I missed out, like you. But anyways,
How do you?
enough about
Can I ask you something? How do you
sure.
feel? Some countries, European countries, they have mandatory.
Yes.
Like in Australia, they have that. They have mandatory military service. What are your thoughts on that? I'm not really crazy about it because I think it's an option that should be a choice. But in
Yeah.
some countries, it is mandatory. Do you feel differently? You have a different opinion?
Well, it was mandatory for a reason. Nobody wanted to join.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening in Canada. If you look at the Canadian forces, it's absolutely a joke. They haven't done
All right.
anything in the better part of 40, 50 years.
Mm.
And there's millions of Russians on the northern Yukon Northwest Territory, Nunavut, and Alaskan border that are 60 miles away.
Wow.
And we've got 4 or 5 Canadian guys probably smoking pot, watching porn, drinking beer,
Being
and
Canadian
and
for being Canadian.
yeah, just hanging out.
Hey,
Just a few hosers getting hammered and drinking some beers, eh?
so I
And
guess
but
the only thing
anyways,
that's really deterring Russia from invading us is America.
well, I think Russia's got its own problems right
Yeah.
now, and that is the rest of the world, minus the despots that actually still
But
believe in
I
those
have to
cycles.
imagine they want our natural resources.
Well, they're the second best country in the world in terms of natural resources. Canada being number one,
Yeah, but
and
they're
true.
greedy.
Well,
Some of
they
them
are
are.
greedy,
The
and but
oligarchs.
Canada is just apathetic and lazy because everybody's stoned or drunk or don't care.
Well, I
And
think that's human nature to some degree.
yeah,
I mean, like I noticed that working for security for so many years, people have a tendency not to react until after the fact. And you
mm,
talk about preparation or you talk about contingencies, and sometimes people look at you like you're a weirdo. Like we're always
mm,
it's kind of off topic. We're always telling people don't leave stuff in your car, don't
yeah,
leave valuable things in your car. And I do my patrols every day. It doesn't matter where I'm working, and I always see laptops and expensive coats and all kinds of items. And
hmm,
people roll the dice. They're
mm,
taking the risk. But when stuff
yeah.
gets stolen, they lose their minds and they tend to blame. It's like, oh, security's not doing their job. No, we are, but it takes two to tango.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's a topic for discussion. Perhaps in the next episode, we're thinking about doing an episode discussing the retail apocalypse and the hospitality industry and the
Wow.
service
Awkward.
industry. Yeah. Oh, there's
That
so
sounds
much to
serious.
go in there. We might even do 2 parts in it because there's so much. But in the meantime,
Okay.
can if you don't mind, may I start off with the my first suggestion for
Absolutely, sir.
favorite war films? And
Ladies
and this
first.
is and this is kind of what we've done so many times in the past, Johnny. This is not in any particular order.
Okay.
Some of these films I've said before on different genres because they're that good. But
Right.
I'm going to start off with my favorite current war film that I saw, and I'll just give you a brief intro without saying any actors' names, and see if you could figure out exactly, and see if the audience, if there is any audience,
Name that war movie.
exactly. And so, Captain John Miller takes his men behind enemy lines to find blank, 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 whose blank, blank have been killed in combat. Surrounded by the brutal realities of war while searching for blank, each man embarks on a personal journey and discovers their own strength to triumph over uncertain future with honor, decency, and courage.
Okay, I'm going to take a guess. Porky's 2 the next day.
Are you
Did I win?
high?
Do I get the $1 million?
Are you drinking beer before doing the show?
Later.
Okay. Oh,
I
good.
do prioritize. I'm able to do that sometimes.
My first film is one I watched last night again, probably for the dozenth time, maybe more. Saving Private Ryan. It
Okay.
is Tom Hanks and Spielberg, and it's every single time I watch it. The one thing I love about this film I forgot about briefly is they have all of these guys cast like Tom Hanks. All of the guys that are still alive of on the show actually get interviewed during this movie at the end.
Oh,
And
some
it's
of them.
interesting to see how the casting directors hit home runs
No,
on
they look
how these
like
guys looked
that's
back in their 20s.
wow.
And it's just honestly, it's a 10 out of 10. It's one
Yeah.
of the best war films I've
The,
ever seen in my
the
life, top 20.
scene I remember the most from that movie is one of the American soldiers a bullet hits his helmet, and then he takes it off and he's happy that he's still alive when the bullet hits him. I mean, it's not really funny, but it
It
just
was horrific. It was the first 25 minute. That first 25
yeah,
minutes was
that was
just
a movie.
unbelievable.
That was one of the most riveting openings in cinema history. Just it was a
If
movie
there's
unto itself.
anybody out there that hasn't seen this movie,
Yeah,
please do us a favor.
one of the
Johnny
best.
and Pauly,
Yeah,
we give it.
two thumbs up.
Where's my thumb? Oh, there it is.
Oh man,
Thumbs up. What do you
3D.
got, bro? What's
Okay,
that?
my first choice is 1981's Gallipoli, directed by Peter Weir. It's
Yeah.
one of my favorite film directors, and Australian, and stars Mel Gibson. One of I believe it's his first movie, and it's basically about two young guys who are athletes. They're runners, and they one of them is a bit like Luke Skywalker. He's very idealistic and he believes in the war, and he's very eager to go to Turkey and be a hero. And Mel
Blonde hair,
Gibson,
blue eyes.
yeah, exactly. And Mel Gibson is a little bit older. He's a bit more like the Han Solo kind of guy, a bit wizened and a bit more cynical. And he basically tags along because there's really nothing else going on with his life. And so they have some humorous adventures along the way. It's a very charming film. Ultimately, it's very, I don't want to spoil the ending, but it's very heartbreaking. They do wind up going to Turkey and they do wind up fighting the Turks during World War One. And of course, the famous or infamous Battle of Gallipoli where many soldiers were needlessly sent to their deaths. It really, and it has one of the most, it has an ending that will stick in your mind for the rest
Mm,
of your life. So
yeah, and
that's what
it's.
I could watch that movie over and over again.
I'm
And
going to watch it. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I've seen it
so
many
good.
times. And the one thing that people always forget too is the sheer balls that the generals had to send these chaps on horses facing those Turkish machine guns
Right.
was absolute insanity.
It was,
It was a
I mean,
complete massacre.
like a total suicide mission. They were just
Oh,
lambs to the slaughter. They didn't have
you're
a chance.
toast before you even go.
Yeah.
It's like the meat fodder
I
of
wouldn't,
the Russian front line right now in the Ukrainian war.
you know
It's
what?
like these.
I wouldn't have blamed any of those guys for disobeying those orders. I would
Look at
not
the Russian soldiers.
blame them.
How many have been killed, and how many are just
Yeah,
they're instantly they're just putting their hands up and saying, "Just take me, give me some food, let me get out of here." This is
yeah,
crazy. The
yeah,
rubles suck anyways; they're not getting paid enough. But
yeah.
you know what a great film! And
Yeah.
for those that haven't seen it, that are we're old school, you really need to. Mel Gibson. It was his first film. I believe he was only
Yeah. Mel
21 years
Gibson, Mark
old.
Lee was the other actor.
Yeah, well, there's quite a few in that, and the
Yeah,
director was incredible. The cinematography, it's a classic war film where it's riveting. There's a story you care, and it's tragic. It's sad, like most war films, if not all. And good one, Johnny.
thank you. Yeah.
I'm gonna go to one of my favorite war films, top 20, maybe top 10. And I've said this in one of my our earlier episodes when it was our favorite films, and except this time I'm going to talk about Apocalypse Now,
Mhm.
the Redux, the director's cut by Francis Ford Coppola, and I'll just read the prelim as I love to. In Vietnam, 1970, Captain Willard Martin Sheen, a very young Martin Sheen, and takes a perilous and increasingly hallucinatory journey upriver to find and terminate Colonel Kurtz, Marlon Brando, a once promising officer who's repeatedly gone mad. In the company of the Navy patrol
Or,
boat filled with
or
street smart kids, a surfing obsessed Air Cavalry officer, Robert Duvall, and a crazed freelance photographer ripped out of his mind most of the film, Dennis
Dennis
Hopper,
Hopper.
Willard travels further and further into the heart of darkness.
Darkness, which was a novel by Joseph Conrad.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. And Lawrence Fishburne was
Yeah.
his very first
I
film,
think he was
and
14.
14
He
years
might have
old when
lied
he's
about his age. I'm not sure.
yeah, when he's
Depending on
and
the
he's a
movie.
great actor and he's had a great career.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the extended director's cut and you got 3 hours to kill, absolutely masterpiece in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I saw that 4 hour version at the Stanley back in the day. And I remember when the lights came on, everyone in the audience was like nobody was standing up. It's just really an emotionally gut wrenching film. And the
Yeah,
music and the ride of the Valkyries and the
yeah.
helicopter attack on the village. I
Just
mean,
extraordinary film.
it's not a very happy film, but
No.
it is absolutely mesmerizing and completely gut wrenching. No, I agree with you 100%. I love Francis Ford Coppola. I mean,
Yeah, me too.
he's
And by the way,
no,
Happy War films. Have you ever seen Stalingrad
no, no,
On Broadway in a musical?
no.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Just not going to
there
happen.
you go. Good point.
It's so
Okay.
true.
My next pick is The Great Escape,
Ah,
1963, directed by John Sturges,
oh yeah,
written by James Clavell and W.L. Burnett. James Clavell.
yeah.
I have never read any of his books, but he's written Shogun, a super prolific writer, and basically a bunch of American soldiers and British soldiers. They're held captive at Stalag Luft 3, and it's based on a true story. It's about their escape and just an incredible cast. My favorite character is the legendary tough guy Charles Bronson,
Oh, I
who's
love
famous
Charles.
for playing the baddest of badasses. He plays the Tunnel King in this movie, and ironically, again, based on all these guys really actually existed, he was claustrophobic. And of
Mm.
course, at a pivotal moment in the film, as he's trying to get out the tunnel, he has a panic attack, and it's got to be one of Charles Bronson's most amazing performances. And it's just one of those. I remember my roommate Kennedy and I we watched it one night, and we were so tired, and we're like, no, we gotta keep watching. It's a 3 hour movie, and it's just one of those movies.
Was that Kennedy Ferrier?
That's the one. Our friend
I
from high
love it.
school, our friend from Kiss
We
High
went to high
School.
school together. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We used to we watch movies together all the time. So that's my next pick, and
Good one.
classic film score by Elmer Bernstein, one of the
Yep.
most memorable film scores of all time, and
Yep.
one of the most exciting motorcycle chase scenes of all
Yeah.
time. Stunts performed by one of the stars, another legendary tough guy, Steve McQueen.
Oh yeah. I mean,
They
I
don't
was
make movies like these anymore. I feel.
no, no, and there were so many stars in that. I mean, oh
Yeah.
my god,
Donald
and
Pleasance, James Garner,
yeah,
um, James Coburn, who played a Canadian, of
yeah,
all things.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, we got to mention the Canadians, and of course, Steve McQueen was tragically, like Yul Brenner, very young
very
when he
heavy
died
smoker.
from cancer.
Yeah,
He was a chain smoker and a pot smoker and a heavy drinker, and I guess all that caught up with him. And
yeah. Well, they
you
lived their
know,
lives. I
they
mean, some
certainly
people
did,
live
and that's
short
a
lives, but
great
they live
film.
amazing short lives, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And they really had it going, and I really enjoyed that film. I'm going to
Mm,
go into my third. Again, this is no favorite order, but all the ones that I say they're my top 20 films pretty much. And
okay.
I'm going to go with Platoon.
Ah,
And Oliver Stone. A lot of people don't give credit to this guy. He's a very talented writer, very talented director. Didn't do a lot of stuff, but everything he did
and
really well.
he actually served in country.
Well, this
Yeah,
is based on his own
yeah.
Platoon was based he
Right,
wrote
right.
it based on his own.
Autobiographical.
So don't be surprised if one of those characters in Platoon was him.
Yeah, yeah.
And he
Probably the Charlie
actually
Sheen character, I'm guessing.
he actually had a small part in the film as well.
Oh well.
Um, and so anyway, I'll give you a little blip down. Chris Taylor, who Charlie Sheen, leaves his university studies to enlist in combat duty in Vietnam in 1967 rather reluctantly.
Hmm.
Once he's on the ground in the middle of the battle, his idealism fades instantly. Infighting in his unit between Staff Sergeant Barnes, a very dark and evil Tom Berenger, played just magnificent. I think he actually got nominated for Assistant Academy Award for Best Actor. Believes that nearby villagers are harboring Viet Cong soldiers. They probably were. And
Yeah,
Sergeant Elias, the good versus evil,
right.
Willem Dafoe, one of my favorite actors, has a more sympathetic view of the locals and ends up pitting the soldiers against each other as well as the enemy. My God, what a great film!
Yeah,
1986.
and
They
it's
won
nice.
the Stone won the Academy Award for Best Picture,
Yes, you did.
amongst other things. And I haven't seen it in a long time. I'm ready to watch it again.
Yeah, yeah, it's a classic. Yeah, and yeah, I mean it's a great movie. I've seen it many times. I haven't seen it for quite a long time. My next pick is Uncommon Valor, 1983, directed by Ted Kotcheff, Canadian.
Yep.
He also directed First Blood, which was
Right.
shot in Hope, BC.
Right.
And Gene Hackman plays
Yes.
a retired U.S. colonel who believes that his son is a POW, again from the Vietnam War,
Right.
and he assembles his old team, including Reb Brown, who played Captain America in the 1970s and is a
Wow.
Facebook friend of mine. I've actually
Wow.
chatted with him a couple of times on Facebook. What a world we're living in where we can connect with anybody. And again, it's just a great, fun, and up. It's kind of a little bit sad towards the end, but it's a great movie about male bonding, and there's a lot of humor. And Patrick Swayze,
Mm.
who was famous for playing more romantic type characters like Dirty Dancing, he's a total badass
Ghost.
in this movie.
Ghost.
Oh, yeah, he tended to be cast as those kinds of characters, but
Mm.
he was a manly man and also a martial artist as well as a dancer.
And a badass
And
in
he was
in
badass. He was one of those
yeah,
free boy kind
in
of actors.
Roadhouse, and then
Right. Roadhouse, exactly.
what about the surfing film with Keanu Reeves? He was great in that.
Point Break.
Yeah,
Catherine
great.
Bigelow. And
Great
so
stuff.
Patrick Swayze and Randall Tex Cobb, who
Oh,
plays this sort of insane biker, rowdy type guy, and they have a really
certainly not typecast at all.
no, not the least. You get the feeling that this is the guy in real life too, and
Yeah.
so they have a really funny fight
After
scene.
24 beers.
Yeah. And Fred Ward is in the movie, and Tim
Fred
Thomerson, you
Ward.
might remember the Trancers movies from the
Yeah.
1980s, where
Yeah.
he's a detective from the future.
Cool.
So that's my I didn't see this movie until a couple of years ago. I actually found an old VHS tape and I was curious about it. And
Yep.
it's just one of those movies that gobsmacked me. I think it's a really great, exciting adventure film. And again, it just plays upon the themes of brotherhood and esprit de corps and camaraderie and friendship.
Good choice. I love
Yeah.
that movie. I'm a big fan of Gene Hackman and
Oh yeah.
all the guys you said.
I don't mean to name drop, but I actually met him. He actually came to my acting
Yeah.
school, Rec Academy back in the day. He was
Nice.
filming Narrow Margin in
Hey,
Vancouver.
I went to Breck Academy too.
You did.
Just
I
about the
don't.
same time as you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Anyways, that's a good one. So
yeah.
far I'm on a roll. My next one is a surprise because we actually, the people don't know, we actually filmed this episode on this format, this new format, which is EVMU, MUX. And I'm thank God I found it. I've tried 5 others and I couldn't find anything that would sort of help us present a
Okay.
better program, a better product. And I'm very happy with it. It looks great.
Mm.
And of course, we're still learning it, so we can get better. But getting back is in the first episode that didn't work out because of sound and so on. We decided to do this together. This is our third time lucky, Johnny.
There we go.
And
There's a charm.
and I look back on that last episode and tried to listen to it as best I could because the sound was terrible. That was my fault. But this film wasn't in my two previous
Oh,
ones, and I'm going to go with a film that's more psychological,
I'm
and
excited to hear
it
this.
is a film not so much about war in the moment, but what war does to you psychologically and sociologically and physically and mentally. And it's The Deer Hunter.
Oh, right. Forgot about.
And let me read this. 1968, Michael, Robert De Niro, and Nick, Christopher Walken, two of
Mm.
my favorite actors.
Oh yeah.
And then Steven, John Savage, who we both love and talked about previously, were lifelong friends from working class Pennsylvania steel town, prepared to ship overseas following Steven's elaborate wedding and one final group hunting trip.
Mm.
One final. In Vietnam, their
Foreshadowing.
dreams of military honor and are quickly shattered by the inhumanities of war, and those who survive are haunted by that experience as
Right.
Nick's hometown sweetheart, a very young and talented Linda Meryl Streep,
Mm.
and Michael Cimino, who made some classic films, made some absolute crap films.
He made a film that ruined a studio, Heaven's Gate, which I've
He,
seen. I've seen parts of Heaven's Gate. I actually
yeah,
what I saw looks. I thought it looked
it
really
was
good.
good, but it was a
Yeah.
total bomb when it came
Too
out.
long.
and they won. Chimino won Best Academy Award for Best Picture and amongst other things. And if you haven't seen this film, many haven't in a long time, especially
Most
younger
famous the
generations.
Russian roulette scene.
Yeah, don't give it away. There
Yeah.
are a
No,
lot of
no, no.
great scenes.
Yeah.
A lot of
And,
it's like Deliverance on steroids. Let's put it that way. And so, Johnny, what are you going to surprise us with next?
I'm going to go with Braveheart, 1995. Again, Mel Gibson, directed by Mel Gibson, winner of Best Picture. He plays William Wallace, and it's something like the 14th century, and Scotland is under the rule of England. The tyrannical Longshanks, played by the legendary Patrick McGoohan, really one of the great villains in cinema history, I
Hmm.
feel. And this movie, great score by James Horner. And again, another, I love the makeup that Mel Gibson wears, the blue makeup that he has. He
Yeah.
looks like a total psycho. And the battle scenes in this movie, it is one of the first movies that had been made in many years that literally had a cast of thousands, like
Yeah.
Ben-Hur or the Ten Commandments. Like Hollywood really hadn't made that kind of movie for a long time, probably because it costs a lot of money to feed all those extras, right?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
and, and no CG like movies that came after that. Some of these war movies that are made now, you see like the armies, like especially the more fantasy related films, you can tell that you're looking at pixels. You can tell that you're looking at zeros and ones. These
Yeah.
were real people, and again, I just love the humor of the film and the passion. And it's just one of my absolute all-time favorite movies. And I love
Yeah.
the relationship between Patrick McGoohan and his son. You remember his son, the prince?
Yeah.
I don't want to describe his character too much because I don't want to offend anyone.
Yeah.
But Patrick McGoohan is obviously not very happy with how his son turned
He's
out.
not enamored with his son
You
at
know,
all.
he would like to throw his son out the window as he does to another character. Spoiler warning. But I love how they bond. Do you remember one scene in the movie where they bond when the princess takes the money to try and bribe a Braveheart into surrendering, and then she comes back, and the son asks her, "Well, you brought back the money, right? You brought back the gold." And she's like, "No, I left it there, so to help them with the pain and suffering." And the father and son actually look at each other like, "Oh, women." Like I love that moment because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just like one moment in that movie where they actually come together, even though it's for
Yeah.
not a very attractive reason. So
No, I
Braveheart
mean,
to me is
I
one of the greatest
I
movies ever made.
love it. A great
Yeah,
film, love it. And I didn't put it on here because I remember from the first iteration of our first show that didn't make it. You had mentioned it, and I loved
right.
it as well. And it's funny you mentioned one of the segues. I'll just go from what you said about the list of stars back in the day. There used to be so many films where there would be literally 20, 25 major stars of different levels of age but experience, and Shakespearean and actors and all kinds. And this
Right.
next film is a
Ensemble.
film that I didn't have before, and when I first saw it, I was like, my God, I waited for this film. It's called The Longest Day.
Oh, right. John
And
That's
yeah, well, amongst 25 other
mm,
incredible actors, 3 hours long. In 1944, the U.S. Army and Allied forces plan a huge invasion of Normandy, France. The same one as everyone talked D-Day. Despite bad weather, General Eisenhower gives the okay, and the Allies land at Normandy. General Norma Kota, Robert Mitchum, another great actor, old school,
mm.
travels with his men onto Omaha Beach. With much effort and lost life, they get off the beach, traveling deep into French territory. The German military, due to arrogance, ignorance, and the sleeping Adolf Hitler, oh, he's sleeping only because he was on a coke bender for 7 days. And you
Hard
gotta,
to believe that pipsqueak of a twerp of a complete loser was able to amass so much power
you
and
know,
blind loyalty. Just one of the darkest chapters of human history.
Well, it's kind of like that fat, bloated psychopath blob that is, for the fourth time, I think, trying to be a despot, a fascist. It's just like, and that fat fluck, and I didn't swear, I said fluck. Is I just can't stand him, and it just reminds me how just there's some really sick and twisted people in this world that are seeking power. We have to
Well,
eliminate those people from
this is
power.
as we talked about in the pre-show. War. And those of us who are good, we find the idea of war repugnant. But
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, we would rather fight than live as a slave, and that's why we have war because there are people who want to enslave us. They
Well,
want to see our faces under their boot heels,
Yeah.
And we don't want that. And sometimes there's only one thing people understand, and that's a punch in the nose.
Well,
That's
it's
just
more
human
than
nature.
that. But let me get back and finish this film here.
Mm,
And best visual effects, best they won tons of Academy Awards. The budget was only 10 million. I say only, but listen to some of the people who are in this movie: Henry Fonda, one of my favorite actors;
yeah.
John Wayne, as you mentioned; Robert Mitchum, as we just mentioned; Sean Connery;
Mm.
Eddie Albert. Do you remember Eddie Albert?
Sure.
Remember the television show
Barnaby
they?
Jones, the Beverly Hillbillies. No?
Yeah,
Or Tony Edson.
right.
Getting the two.
Um, Kurt Jurgens, who played the German, he was very popular back in the time. Richard Burton
Oh yeah.
was absolutely drunk the entire film. Peter Lawford,
Okay.
old school with you know like Vegas Lawford with
Rat Pack.
Sinatra and all those guys.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
him and Burton were just drinking the whole time. Steiger, do you remember Rod Steiger? Rod didn't drink with them because he was sober. Smart
Yeah.
dude.
Good for him.
But that was, if you haven't seen it, you want to see an old school film, and I think they have a black and white version, but it's done in color as well. It's really incredible. What do you
Great.
got next, Johnny?
I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but I just remember the helicopter shots, like really sweeping helicopter shots
Yeah.
of the fighting, which was pretty revolutionary for the time, I think.
Where do you think Francis Ford Coppola got some of his action for Apocalypse
So,
Now?
yeah, everything has a progenitor.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go with 1954's The Caine Mutiny,
Mm-hmm.
based on a novel by Herman Wouk, who's one of my favorite authors. He also wrote The Winds of War, which was made into a great miniseries starring Robert Mitchum, and a sequel, War and Remembrance. So it's World War II, and Humphrey Bogart plays Captain Queeg, who is basically suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. I would say would be called, which is what we would call it today. Easy for me to say. And during a storm, he basically has a nervous breakdown. He's in command of the USS Caine, and the crew mutinies. And so he's relieved of his command forcibly, and then the rest of the movie is his trial. And the prosecutor is played wonderfully by, well, great cast, amazing cast, but Jose Ferrer plays the prosecutor for the mutiner, the people, the soldiers, the naval officers who mutiny. But he's actually much more sympathetic to the Queeg character.
Yeah.
And Fred McMurray plays a guy who really doesn't want to be on that ship. He doesn't really want to be. He wants to be an author of all things. He's probably based on Herman Wouk himself,
Mm.
and he turns out to be somewhat of a coward. It's just a really great movie. And there's a scene
Yeah.
where Captain Queeg is taking a stand and he's testifying at the tribunal or whatever it's called, and you could just see this man unraveling like an onion. And
Yeah.
he's got the ball bearings in his hand. He's got this nervous tick with the ball
I
bearings.
remember that. Yeah.
It's just a riveting performance by Humphrey Bogart. So that's my next
Yeah.
choice. Teen Mutiny.
Wow, that's a good one. I really like that. That's a good one. My next one's going to be a bit of a surprise. I don't know if you've seen it. One of my favorite actors is Mel Gibson, and also one of my favorite directors. He's just a really talented guy. I don't care what anybody says about his anti-Semitic comments or his
You can
drunk and
apologize. You give him a little credit.
he's got 11 kids. The guy's he smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day for 30 years of his life.
He's,
He
he's, he says there's going to be a Lethal Weapon 5.
I
I'm,
well,
in.
and I'm sure Danny Glover will be happy about that.
I'm sure he will
Um,
too.
but I'm not holding my breath to watch that. Let me tell you. But my next one is a film that I didn't really know about. It's Vietnam. It's called We Were Soldiers. The
Oh,
directors Randall Wallace and Mel Gibson and
yeah.
Madeline Stowe star in it, and Greg Kinnear is a helicopter pilot, and Sam Elliott. I mean, what movie, western or film, or war film, Sam Elliott could be in anything. He could be in actually one of your books.
Yeah.
He could be the evil bad guy that your main guy wants to whack, and because he's just so good. John Hamm, Barry Pepper, his Canadian, was in that.
Randall Wallace also wrote Braveheart, incidentally.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And there you see the synergy between him and Mel. Based on the best-selling book "We Were Soldiers Once and Young" by Lieutenant General Harold G. Moore, retired, and journalist Joseph L. Galloway. This compelling war drama depicts the true story of a first major battle between the United States and North Vietnam forces. 19 was it 1969, 68, I think, just after the French were wiped out and gone. between the United States and North Vietnam. It's a film about uncommon valor and nobility under fire, loyalty amongst soldiers, and the heroism and sacrifice of men and women, both home and abroad. And they couldn't have picked a better guy than Mel Gibson. They got dropped in by birds. Greg Kinnear was one of the helicopter pilots into an area, into a valley surrounded by hills, and I believe there was 2,500 Americans soldiers dropped in,
Wow.
and there was up to 15,000 Viet Cong surrounding them.
Yeah.
And it is a battle of just
Hard to
true,
imagine.
yeah, it was terrible. And they actually held the Vietnamese off and survived. And I think about 800, 750 survived, and there was about 1,000 injured, and it was just a massacre. But they held out, and it's really a film where I forgot to eat the popcorn. It was so riveting.
Yeah.
I just could. It was just graphic. It was violent, and Mel Gibson, my God, he's incredible in that.
I've seen it. I barely remember it, but I remember really enjoying it. I would
Oh,
definitely watch
really? Okay.
it. Okay.
All right.
My next choice is Ron, which is Japanese for chaos,
Yep.
made in 1985, directed by the legendary Akira Kurosawa,
Yep.
and it's basically based on King Lear. In King Lear, the king decides to divvy up his kingdom to his three daughters, and in Ron is his three sons. And it turns out to be a really, really not very well thought out decision because civil war breaks out between the brothers who are all vying for power, and the king winds up becoming an outcast and a pariah. It's not a happy movie, but it is gripping from beginning to end. I remember watching it at the Park Theater back in the day with subtitles, and which never bothered me. I always tell people I don't like watching movies with subtitles. I never had a problem with watching movies with subtitles.
Me neither.
Some of the greatest epic, thousands of arrows flying across the screen, like just one mesmerizing image after another. And I'll
Yeah.
never forget the one shot of the soldier. He's holding on to his hand has been completely severed from his arm, and he's holding it with his other hand, and he's laughing. He's just lost his mind. Like I said, it's not a movie that you're going to feel really good about at the end, but I think at the bare minimum it will make you grateful that you never had to go through that kind of experience. And I think
Oh
that's why
my
I like
God.
movies too sometimes.
Yeah, like any war.
It reminds
No
us of
thanks.
how lucky we are and
We're
the way that we're living. It's
extremely fortunate.
Yeah, in so many
What
ways.
a great film. Basically another masterpiece. Probably my second favorite Akira Kurosawa film.
Hmm.
But excellent choice.
Hmm.
Excellent choice. I'm going to go back to another of these multicast type of films, and I love these type of films. And this one's The Dirty Dozen.
Oh, right.
And I just absolutely loved The Dirty Dozen. It was everything that I wanted in a war film and more. And it had an incredible cast. And I'll give you the again, as D-Day approaches, amazing how many films are filmed on that
Mhm.
D-Day invasion, which really changed the whole dynamics of the
Yeah.
Second World War very quickly. Colonel Breed hands the roguish Major Reisman, Lee Marvin, who is drunk through the entire film, as all of his films, but he's just, he's so charismatic,
Yeah.
and his
Well,
face and everything. You wouldn't want to meet that guy in a bar
You'd
and
want him.
have a
You'd
fight.
want him on your good. You'd want to be on his good side all the time.
I'd rather be on his Dirty Dozen and be number 13 or 14. As an important assignment, he must train a team of soldiers to paratroop across enemy lines and assassinate a German personnel at the French chateau. I love this film. What a
Mm,
great idea. Just
mhm.
impossible. The soldiers recruited from murderers, rapists, criminals on death row. Kind of like what Putin's done because he's run out of people.
Oh.
I
So
know,
he's
it's
using
terrible.
prisoners for his army.
Yeah, rapists, murderers, prisoners, people out of the gulag. Just empty the gulag. Let
That's
them fight.
really evil.
Yeah,
Definitely
well, I
evil.
mean, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And
That's why
the
we have war.
soldiers were
Just like
promised
that.
commuted sentences. In spite of their history, the 12 men, prove a spirited and courageous unit led by Major Reisman, and they will exact revenge. Director Robert Ulrich. We know what other war films Robert Ulrich has directed. A couple in particular I'll mention. I won't mention now because one of them is on my list.
Okay.
That film won Best Academy Award for Best Sound Editing. I mean, not the best Academy
Yeah.
Award, but I guess better than anything.
Paul,
And
can I interject for a second?
well,
How are we
please.
doing for time? Is it okay? We're
Yeah,
at
we're
almost at
good.
40
How
minutes.
many more do you have?
I have a couple more, but I just don't want to get like cut off suddenly.
No,
Is there a limit? We're
well.
good.
I mean, it's what time did you have the show for or the room?
We're booked until 5 o'clock.
Oh, we're good, Johnny. Don't
Yeah.
worry about it.
Okay. So I'm
Um,
up next. Okay, my next choice is Rambo, number four, 1985. Sorry, 2008. Written and directed by Sylvester Stallone. Rambo is living in outside of Myanmar, which used to be called Burma, and there's been a civil war going there for like 60 years, and some Christian missionaries spreading the word of God. As one character refers to them, the God Squad. They are captured by Burmese soldiers, really, really bad people. And Rambo is recruited by a minister played by our old friend Ken Howard from The White Shadow, whom we hadn't seen for
yeah,
many years.
yeah,
And this movie is, I tend to favor movies that have short running times. Not very movies for me can really sustain more than a 2.5 hour running time. Rambo is 90 gut wrenching minutes of violence and action and great battles. And Rambo is like the Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th movies of action movies, but in a good way. He's not killing innocent victims. He's killing people who, quite frankly, are asking for it. And I can't remember the actor's name who plays the villain in this movie, the chief antagonist, but he was actually apparently an actual Burmese rebel. And the DVD commentary by Sylvester Stallone is definitely worth listening to. He's a great
yeah.
storyteller, and I love this movie. I love this character, and I also enjoyed Rambo: Last Blood, the most recent one. And I don't know how old Sylvester Stallone is, but he's still in pretty great shape, and I hope he makes another one. He should come back to Hope. He should do the last one in Hope, BC.
I was going
Brian
to
Denny
say
did
that it
that
was
today,
filmed
unfortunately.
in Hope, and
They could do Tiesel's son, Brian Denny. He's
Stallone
son.
is 78 now,
Pardon me?
and Stallone's 78,
Yeah, but he
and
looks amazing.
I've met him a few times in South
Oh,
Beach when I worked under the table before September 11th, and South Beach with my buddy Terry Clough, and I met all the stars, Mickey Rourke, and just it goes on and on. They're all over the place, but he was pretty good, and he was a pretty good tipper actually. A lot of film stars are terrible tippers, and in South Beach at the time, the gratuity was added, so he would tip on top of it, but I think it was because of my charismatic professional table maintenance engineer extraordinaire mentality. I spent 28 years in that industry. I'll leave it at that for
right.
now. We'll maybe talk about that in another video. My next movie is one I brought up for my favorite movie of all time, and I think of war films and I think of great films. My top 20. I can't stop thinking about this because my favorite actor of all time is Peter O'Toole,
Right.
and this movie is Lawrence of Arabia. It's an absolute classic movie. Omar Sharif, Anthony Quinn, Alec Guinness, um, and it's directed by David Lean, who won the Academy Award. The story of T.H. Lawrence, the English officer who successfully united and led a diverse, often warring Arab tribes during the First World War in order to fight the Turks. The Turks, once again, just an absolutely, probably, I say top 20, top 10 best film of all time, best war film of all time, best actor of all time, best director, best cinematography.
David Lean.
David Lee. I saw it at the our favorite theater back in the day at the Stanley, and I was there for 3 hours. And when the film finished, my popcorn was empty, and my mouth was agape, and I was like, "That was the best film I've ever seen in my life."
Yeah, it's
And
visually quite
Peter
an
O'Toole was
experience.
so
Oh,
handsome, and his eyes and blue and charismatic, and
yeah,
he was just an absolute drunk.
he was very suave and
He was a
debonair.
suave drunk, but he actually, like all the other drinkers in his time, he lasted a lot longer
Mm.
than most of the others. Anyways, who do you got next, Johnny?
Okay, I have one or two more. Something happened to the volume. I can barely hear you now.
Okay, well, let me check that. How's that?
Uh, my next choice
How's that?
is
How's that?
it's the same. The
Okay,
volume
how's that?
that is 1,000% better.
I
Thank you
turn.
so much,
Okay,
bro.
there we go. That's the gain. My bad.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I have I think
Sorry,
one.
everyone. I'm still getting used to this.
Okay, no, I can hear you fine now.
Good.
It took a little dip, and now it's 100%. Okay, I have one more choice, and that is Das Boot. 1981, Jürgen Prochnow plays the captain of a German U-boat. I want to say U-96, and it's World War II, and it's a World War II movie from the point of view of the German Navy. And
Yeah.
again, it's just a great movie about, never mind politics and never mind who's right and who's wrong. It's just
Yeah.
a story about men who are putting themselves in harm's way continuously in this tin can called a submarine. And the music by Klaus Doldinger, sorry for the pronunciation, really one of the most rousing, like right up there with John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith, one of the most
Yeah.
really spine tingling film scores of all time. And I
Yeah.
remember watching this movie back in the day, and it's like, gosh, well, I know World War II. America was good and Germany wasn't. But while watching this movie, I was reading for these guys, because it's, sorry, I just spat.
Yeah.
Because it's from
Oh,
their point
I
of
didn't
view.
see that.
Yeah. And so that's my next choice, Das Boat.
That's really good
It is.
and very claustrophobic film.
Yeah.
Um,
Really get
we're
a feeling of what life is like
we're
on
we're at
that.
45 minutes, and I think we've done the war films justice. I do have a couple more, but I wanted to finish up going back to what we were doing before, and that was by any chance, do you have a book with you?
I do actually.
What do you got
I have
today?
two. I actually just got this is war themed. I just got this at the library. I've read the first couple of pages. It's a three-part series called "Songs in the Night," Book One, "While Mortals Sleep" by Jack Kavanaugh, and it begins in 1989 with the fall of the Berlin Wall, and then
Oh,
it goes back to World War II, and you see like what these characters went through during that time. So I just read
wow.
the first couple of pages. This is one that I'm going to finish. I don't finish. This is a bit of a guilty thing to admit. I don't finish every book that I read because I usually have
Wow.
5 or 6 going at the same time,
Yeah.
and some of them kind of fall by the wayside. But I'm going to read the rest of these series. I'm in. So that's my book choice for this podcast.
Excellent. And I'm going to bring up a book that I brought once before or twice. This will be the second time, and you actually went and got it and read it.
Mm,
The reason why I'm bringing this again is because I still haven't finished it,
mm.
and a variety of reasons. But because we're doing a war thing, I've got a couple of things I wanted to surprise, and I want us to do this and everything. This particular film, or it should be a film, is by Ben McIntyre called Rogue Heroes. My grandfather gave this to me. It's the history of the SAS, Britain's secret special forces that sabotaged the wars and changed the nature of war. It is gripping. I'm just going to put it up in front of. Here we go. Do you remember this, Johnny? You took it
Yeah,
out.
I didn't read the whole thing. I read about the first half, and I'll probably come. Get back to one of these days. But yeah,
Oh,
it's a good
I
read.
got. I got to finish it. It
Yeah,
is. I. I'm
these
going
guys have
to.
very big cojones.
Oh my God, these guys are incredible. But the other thing I wanted to bring today, and oh, this dynamic mic, boy, it sounds good when you do it properly. Is my uncle Stefan gave me this as a kid, and this is totally unique. You know, they British show the where they travel around the UK and people bring stuff that's old school, and they think it's what is it worth? Is it worth anything? I forgot the name of the show, but it's anyways, this was given to me, and I have to show this to you. This is a World War I fighter helmet,
Wow,
a
that's
German, a
amazing.
German fighter helmet. It's
Holy,
original World War I. You can see the Nazi symbol,
yeah, yeah.
and look at this. This particular pilot, there's the insignia. He's got 4 kills.
Wow, that's history.
Oh, and I got to find out what the deal is with this. I've been looking for decades and I cannot. But I wanted to share that with you. So if
That's,
anybody
yeah,
comes
that's
across this
amazing.
show and is interested in the First World War, Second World War, that is got to be worth something. It's an
I'm
incredible
sure there are
condition.
people out there who will shell out a few bucks for that if you want to sell it. If that's what you want, or
I
you
it, it, the only way I would sell it is it's gotta be a large amount of funds,
right,
because I have multiple mortgages and I need to pay those down.
right.
What are you
Yeah.
gonna do?
So
Anyways, we're at 49 minutes and 25 seconds, Johnny. It's
are
so
we going to
nice to be
wrap it up?
back with you.
Thanks for
What?
watching. I do have
Oh,
a pun before we go.
a what? A
Okay.
pun?
Yes. Here we go.
Please,
Okay.
Johnny and his puns. Get
Here
ready,
we go.
everyone.
Drum roll, please. The theme for Mortal Kombat is based want to finish him.
Oh my God. Just incredible.
Cricket.
I'm waiting for your own written ones, Johnny. Not just copying somebody else's pun.
That is one I got from the interwebs.
It's all good. It's all good. Anyways, folks, I just thank you very much for joining us. It's episode
Thank you,
13. It's Paul Bale and
Leister.
John Leister. And here we are, the Canadian Bro Show, all things Canadian. This is the pop culture
Living
iteration.
legends in our own minds.
Well, in our own minds, we're shamelessly, anytime that we're able to, and that's why we got our own show, because nobody would listen to us. And we're hopeful that people are listening, and there are people listening. In the meantime, though, we're going to wrap this up, and we're going to be doing a new episode, episode 14 soon. A Canadian Bro Show, pop culture with Johnny and Pauly. All things Canadian is the
Cheers.
first iteration of the Canadian Bro Show. The second iteration is coming up with another wonderful, talented co-host named Trent Rowley, and it's going to be the Canadian Bro Show, all basketball from Hoop Junkies,
Unbelievable.
Pauly and Rowley. And
Wow.
then the third iteration, which I'll be working on, is going to be the Canadian Bro Show, all things real estate by Pauly and Guess. And that's coming. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us. For those that have been patient, for those that are new, please subscribe, please like, please comment, and hit the notification bell for future episodes.
If you want to
And
give us ideas, if you want to be a guest, we're open to anything. We
we
love
are open to a lot of things.
art by you as well.
But on behalf of Johnny and myself, thank you again, and we'll see you soon.
Have a
Have a
great
great
day.
day.
And don't forget, God loves you. And if you don't believe in God, he believes in you. That's how that works. That's Johnny's. Your way might be different. That's fine. Live and let live.
Take care, everyone, and just remember, be kind out there. It's free.
Should be the easiest thing, right?
Ciao.
Ciao. Cheers.